y'all, welcome to CC's Texas Garden. So today we are going to learn about butterflies. Yeah, at the Texas A&M class for Master Gardeners, they have a butterfly class, and came across my Facebook, and I was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna go to it. So that's where we are today, and I'm gonna take y'all along with me. Hopefully I can film in there.
Thank you for coming. I want to introduce Christine McKinney. McKinney. Thought I had that wrong for a minute. She's our butterfly lady, and she's here to introduce you to some.
And attribute it to the gardening.
Yes.
So it's a little bit, as I was like prepping all of this, I kind of was like amusing myself because I know that you guys are really into the plant side of things. And here I'm going to come and tell you, these are the beautiful creatures that you need to let eat things in your garden.
Yes.
Which I know to most people, you see holes in your plants, you see predator, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what is this? Because I used to be the same way. I did things backwards. My interest started with the butterfly side of things, and then I've developed the love and the ability to grow the plant side of things. So at first, I was very much like I would peruse my garden and think, oh my gosh, there's holes, what's eating this? Because that's not what's supposed to be eating it. You know, if you got milkweed, I wanted monarchs on my milkweed. I didn't want anything else on my milkweed. And so it has taken a number of years to embrace the fact that you don't just get to control every little nuance and have a healthy, sustainable garden. So you're seeing a reflection of my years of learning all of these things. I always start with vocab. I've probably gone over some of these with you guys, but I use a lot of these words as I'm presenting, so that's why I usually just throw them out. Instar, that's the stages of a caterpillar. I compare it to levels in a video game to most of the kids that I teach because that's something they can relate to. Every time you level up, you get a little bigger, a little better. Most caterpillars have 5 instars. You'll come across some moths that have up to a dozen. It just kind of depends on what you're dealing with, but since we're talking mostly butterflies, it's about 5. Filaments. Filaments are the little fleshy appendages on the caterpillars. A lot of people want to call them antenna. I'm not going to, throw rocks at you if you do, but the actual, oh my gosh, they're all in the same branch. Okay, listen guys. So the little fleshy appendage, here we go. He's going to cooperate for me. There we go. So these are not antenna. These are filaments. They're little fleshy appendages. They actually work a little bit like cat whiskers. They kind of help them gauge what's around them and what they're doing. So they will walk around and you'll see those kind of bounce. You notice these guys have them down the sides of them as well. It's actually in an effort to make them look bigger. So hatching, the only time you talk about hatching with a caterpillar is when it comes out of the egg, including when it becomes a butterfly. That is not hatching. It does not hatch from a chrysalis. It ecloses, which is the second, or the one right under it. So that's just a fancy term because we like to make people's lives difficult when, you're like talking about scientific terms. We don't just let you call it whatever. There's always a name for it. Pupating, that is when they turn into a chrysalis. I don't know about you guys, but when I was first learning about butterflies, I did not know that their actual physical body was the chrysalis. I thought it was something they created, and that's actually kind of true for moths. They do create a cocoon, they climb inside of it, they pupate. However, what actually you're seeing when you see a chrysalis is the body of the caterpillar. This was a caterpillar. This is an eastern black swallowtail in its chrysalis. It's actually still alive. She's been chilling in there since last fall, and I know she's alive because she still is flexible. If they die in chrysalis, they get real dried out. She's not really much to look at, but it's actually, I think it's fascinating. So when they pupate, this is what was her head, and all the parts of a butterfly become the different parts of a chrysalis. There are some that are kind of ancillary that aren't really 100% needed. The filaments, I don't know where those go. Those just shed with the skin. They have prolegs. Those go away because the resulting butterfly doesn't still have them. So there are some spare parts, but for the most part, it's all inside of there. Cremaster, that is on a species of butterfly that hangs. This is the cremaster, this little black thing that attaches them. Usually it's got a whole bunch of hooks on the end, kind of like crochet hooks, and then they will spin silk that they attach to like Velcro. Brushfoot, this is the feet of a butterfly. Each one of them, I have a picture of the next one. The end of each butterfly foot has a brush foot on it. Have you ever heard the expression that butterflies taste with their feet? This is to what they are referring. They have little claws, they're called tarsal claws. They scratch the surface of what they land on, tells them right away, is this food, is this a host plant, is this something I don't care about? Prolegs, that is the little fleshy appendages on a caterpillar. It's this set right here. So most insects, you guys know, 6 legs. That's kind of when you ask the elementary school question, how many legs does an insect have? 6. It's a lot more than 6 legs. That's actually 16 legs. But that is because you'll notice these look different than these. These are spare parts. These are basically, they work by locomotion. These 6 legs are their true legs, and that is actually what controls where they go. If you watch even one of these guys crawl, they do this really cool thing where their front legs are actually what is propelling what their back legs do. He's gonna be ticked off. It's like, what are you doing?
Front wheel drive.
Yes. So and then back here they've got these pro legs that will grip on. Sorry, an extra set of pro legs that will grip on. But you see, he's feeling around with his front legs, and then as he walks, those back feet do not start going. See, he's like, what are you doing to me? Okay, we're gonna let him sit here. But the back feet don't start moving until the front legs decide where they're going. And then they will all follow behind like locomotion. It's really cool. So, but they're not able to function like on their own. So Osmeterium, I don't want to upset him, but he might show us. No, see, they're too chill. So right here on his head, he has a little orange spot right in the center. When they get upset, they have a little forked organ that comes out of their head. It stinks to high heaven. He's got this little, it's meant to deter predators. It stinks and it actually has an oily substance that comes off. One of them did it to me when I put him in here. But they're really a chill species. Like you almost have to hurt them to get it to do it, and I don't want to do that, of course.
Skunk effect.
But yes, it is like skunk. So ventral is the underside. Ventral is kind of the term used for the underside of anything. Dorsal is the back. Think of a dorsal fin on a dolphin. Chrysalis, that is specifically a term for butterflies. And then frass, we learned that one earlier. That is caterpillar poop, because like I said, you have to give a name to everything. So and now we all know the same vocabulary. So when I use this, you will be like, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. So this is, sorry, I talk really fast. Sometimes I have to catch up with myself. Like, gotta breathe. So the brush feet, that is what a close, super macro image of the end of that is a monarch's foot right there.
Aww.
And they have tarsal claws, which it's real funny. When I started with all this, my kids were 4, 6, and 8, and I was teaching them as I was learning because I found it all very fascinating. And I remember teaching my kids tarsal claw. I thought, oh, that's so cool. It's like how they grip onto things. Our first butterfly emerged, and my middle child screamed like she was being murdered when I suggested that she hold it. And I said, what is the matter? And she said, I don't want his claws to rip into me, because tarsal claw to a 6-year-old was terrifying. So I had to explain to her, no, honey, that's all it looks like. And it's literally, now my son did get a tarsal claw to his tear duct one time, and that was not fun, because he had a butterfly
fun.
crawl up his face. He was fine, but he was like, okay, that actually did hurt Mom. The wingspan of a brushfoot butterfly. So when we refer to brushfoot butterflies, we are talking about butterflies in this same family. They stand on 4 legs. How do they stand on 4 legs when an insect has 6? Because they have 2 vestigial legs that they keep clasped to their chest. The only time you will see those used is they will land on a plant and they do that cool little scratchy thing. I've raised thousands of butterflies. I've seen it like twice, because it is literally like a ninja maneuver that they do. It's incredibly fast, and you don't see it very clearly. But they're about 3.5 to 4 inches. We do have some that are smaller than that. We don't have many that are much bigger than that in the brushfoot family. So those vestigial legs held against, and they use that to taste. Swallowtail butterflies are different. They stand on 6 legs. They do still scratch the surface, that kind of thing, but they just stand on all 6 of their legs. They tend to be a little bit larger. Males and females are going to be different sized in most species. They are also differently colored. There's a few that's an exception to that are in our area that I highlight in slides that we're going to get to. but that is called sexual dimorphism. It just means that males and females don't look the same. And not every species is like that, but in my opinion, most of the males are prettier actually in the butterfly world. You rarely find that, but that's because they have to attract the females, so they gotta be beautiful, and but like I said, 6 legs and also have the tarsal claws. And then of course this is a caterpillar. We already talked about their little squishy parts, true legs, prolegs, and then anal prolegs. That is actually what they hold on with when they pupate. So whenever you see one hanging upside down like in J, they're hanging on with those back prolegs, which is cool because those are not actually physically attached to their body. So when they molt, there is a very brief moment where literally the only thing holding them up is skin and the will of God. I don't know. They have to get their cremaster, which is hidden in this area when they go to pupate. As they're hanging in J, you can actually kind of see it. If you look like with a light behind it, you can kind of see the outline of a cremaster in there. It's really cool. But there is a brief second. I used to sit and watch mine pupate, and I'd do this. I was like, feels like you're not going to get this. It feels like you don't know what you're doing. They do. And if they fall, they're actually probably sick, which took me a number of years to learn. But it's a really cool process. But literally, just this brief moment where that is the only thing holding them on. And if they don't catch that cremaster, they are going to fall. And anytime I see them outside and it's like windy, I'm just like, good luck. So I say a few of our native species tongue-in-cheek. We are so lucky. This is not even a full comprehensive list of all of the butterflies that you might see living in our particular area of Southeast Texas. We have the weirdest climate overlap. We've got stuff from South Texas that ranges up to us. We've got stuff from Mexico that decides to go on vacation. We have so much here, and it's amazing. All the ones that I have with an asterisk, I have actually personally reared at some point in some capacity. This is my unicorn, you guys. Have you ever seen Gone in 60 Seconds? This is my Eleanor, okay, right here. That is the only swallowtail that I have never had a chance to physically rear in person and observe. Wow. Admittedly, I don't do that much anymore. As I have learned about ecosystem, I have learned what my role needs to kind of be in all of this. But because I teach classes, because I in particular teach kids classes and classes at parks and things like that, I do still observe these guys in person because I feel like hands-on is really the best way to learn. Plus, I love all my pictures that you'll see in here. Almost every single one of those is my own picture. Oh, wow. And so being able to document it as well. And I've seen way more than just the ones with the asterisk, but whenever you're talking about raising a butterfly, you have to have what they need to eat in caterpillar form. So this is just a sample of what you might see here. So, like I said, started when my kids were really little. 2016, I thought, oh, this will be a fun thing to do for the summer. And now here I am. What is that, 9 years? 9 years later. So obviously it wasn't just for the summer. We had Elsa and Freckles. Elsa ended up being this one, which is a boy. So when he came out, my girls decided, no, that has to be Freckles, and we'll wait for the other one to come out because it was a girl. So Elsa, Freckles, it was Elsa because one, popular movie at the time, and two, my daughter said, I'm gonna sing Let It Go when you let her go. Aww. And she did, so, it all came around. But like I said, my efforts in my garden have shifted over the years, even since the first time I ever came and spoke to you guys. I think I was still elbow deep in raising caterpillars back then. I have changed quite a bit. I really work on habitat now in my own plants. I try to build what I call an ecosystem. I use that word a lot. Instead of picking and choosing what's in my garden, I try to embrace and have what's in my garden be more effective for what I would like to have in my garden, if that makes sense. Also, I'm a volunteer at the Museum of Natural History downtown. I work in the Butterfly Center. And when I first started there, I was actually in the chrysalis room upstairs where we take all the butterflies that have emerged and we send them out into the conservatory. Over the years, I've actually shifted a little bit, and I am now in the greenhouse, which is behind the scenes, not open to the public. We raise a lot of the butterflies that come into the Butterfly Center there on site. So I get to see species from all over the world that I would not get to see any other way by the work that I do at the museum. So I actually just got my 5-year pin, but I've been there for 6 years. But we do everything on a delay. I got my first 40 hours, I think, when I was like year 2. And I hit 40 hours in like 3 months. Nice. But That's how it goes, right? So butterflies are susceptible to a lot of stuff, parasites, disease, predation. Sometimes the way you arrange things in your garden can actually make them more or less susceptible. When you have host plants that are kind of clumped all together with your nectar plants, it actually gives them a little bit more places to hide. If you think about it, having things really sparsely laid out, not great. Gives a lot of predators, a lot of view of your plants. So, and that's kind of a live and learn thing, because you also have to do what's right for the plant, right? Because if you're planting things on top of each other and they're not thriving, you're not helping the bugs or the plants. So, kind of have to figure it out for what works in your space. So, habitat loss is actually the largest contributing factor to the decline of monarchs. I can't tell you how frustrated I get when I see people talk about, oh my gosh, we have to raise monarchs and we have to do, no. They don't need us to bring in eggs and raise them. They need us to provide spaces where they are able to function in the natural way that they are supposed to. So 1 to 5% of butterfly eggs laid will ever survive to become butterflies. And that sounds abysmal, right? That is it's exactly how nature wants it to be. The only time it gets out of balance is when we screw it up. So when you're saying all of this stuff about butterflies are in decline, yes, because of us. Because that 1 to 5% isn't even able to survive. So that's when you run into problems. So it's not a matter of step in and raise 1,000 butterflies. And trust me, as a person who's raised 1,000 butterflies, I can tell you that's not the answer. But if you think about it, so like imagine, I know this is tropical milkweed, which I don't really have much of left in my garden. It keeps popping up in random places, but I am phasing it out for my my natives. But if you think about it, you have 10 milkweed plants. If any of you have ever watched a monarch eat, that's really gonna get you what, maybe 3? It's not gonna last you very, very many caterpillars. If a butterfly comes along and lays 100 eggs on those 10 plants, they can't all make it. They just can't. Even if they did, if let's say you brought them in and they all sustained, they all had the food they needed and they all developed and they were all perfectly healthy to fly out and lay more eggs, where are they gonna lay eggs? That each one of those butterflies is gonna be laying that hundreds, actually they can lay, I think it's 1,200 eggs, like a female in like the entirety of their lifespan, I think it's 1,200 eggs. Where's that gonna go? So this 1 to 5%, that is what is meant to be. They provide food for other things in all their life stages, and that's how it's supposed to be, but we screw it up as humans, And pesticide use, that kind of thing. Oh, this guy, he was super nice. He posed for me on a plant literally yesterday. I was like, oh, I need one more bug in that photo. I was super excited.
Are they good bugs?
They're not, I don't do good or bad with bugs. They will do some damage to some things in your garden. When I see them, I'm like, go away. I get a little annoyed. But that's, if you're trying to raise tomatoes, I've seen them drain the fluids out of your tomatoes. But again, it's kind of hard to keep them out of there. And 2, I really try to not say good, bad bug, because they all serve a purpose. I just really want the birds to come and swoop those up. So, purpose of butterflies, they are pollinators. They, take pollen for things, for fruit, for vegetables, for flowers, that kind of thing. They are not as effective as bees. I know we always talk about, oh yeah, they're pollinators, they're important pollinators. They're actually a little clunky, they're a little clumsy, but there are plants that they are uniquely qualified to pollinate. There's actually a type of milkweed, which is of course a little self-serving because that's what they need. But Perennis milkweed has these really sticky pollen sacs that are required to carry from. I have freed so many bees from those plants because they, just realized I left the lid. And I'm like, I'm gonna look over here. They're getting so close to being ready to pupate, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna look over and y'all are gonna have one that has, taken off. But they, the pollen sacs are so heavy that bees actually get trapped in them. And so sometimes I'll come and you hear these poor little bees, bzz, 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 they're stuck in there, and I'm like, don't sting me, but I'm gonna get your little foot out of here, and you go ahead. But butterflies are bigger, they weigh more, which is hilarious because an average butterfly weighs about as much as a paper clip, which is not a lot, but more than a tiny bee. So there are things that require a heavier pollen load that they are uniquely capable to pollinate. So I don't feel like we can tout them as quite the pollinators that bees and creatures like that are, but they are still incredibly important. And plus, they are food for lots of things in every stage of their life. They're pretty low on the food chain. I always have to tell people this one, touching the wing of a butterfly will not keep it from flying. I grew up being told that. It is completely and 100% false. I have tons of videos I could show you guys, but it's 100% false. Now, if you touch a butterfly's wing, you're probably gonna get scales on you. They have thousands upon thousands of them. That's actually what they're for. And if you think about it, I don't know why any of us believe this, because if touching them made them not fly, how do they live in the rain? How do they bump into things and continue to fly?
Yes.
It really never did make sense, but I think someone along the way probably thought, oh, this will keep kids from picking up butterflies and maybe hurting them, so maybe let's just tell kids that it's bad for them. And then here we are, however many years later, and people still believe it. I've actually had people scold me on release videos that I've done because I'm holding them in my hand. I'm like, oh my gosh, they'll never fly. And I'm like, you watched the whole video, right? The part where it flew, like, did we see that? Because I didn't stop it.
Probably because the kids who picked them up ate them. And
Right, or
Yeah.
crunched. I mean, they're.
Yeah.
I have 3 children, so I get it. You know, birds, lizards, frogs. That is a common myth. They absolutely eat monarch caterpillars. I grew up being told, no, they don't. They think they're gross. How do you know you don't like something? Because you try it at least once.
Yes.
And they're not going to survive the trying it at least once part. So at some point, and then things like frogs, they actually really they are like little garbage disposals. They don't even care. Or like toads and frogs, they will eat everything that they can fit in their mouth. Baby birds are dumb. They'll just eat what they can catch. Same with lizards. I've literally watched them eat them on my plants, and if they get indigestion later, they don't care because they come back, you know.
Yeah.
And they are not poisonous, but they are toxic. Think of it as eating something that gives you an upset stomach versus eating something that's going to kill you. They're not going to kill you, but you might not be happy about it. Now, for a human, that's going to take. I actually had I taught a class, and this little boy. I think he was on the spectrum in some capacity, but he was very intently staring at this caterpillar, a monarch that I had in a container. And he had someone sitting next to him, and so I was like, you're fine, study it away, I don't care. And she comes over and she goes, I think he just ate the frass from this caterpillar. Okay. And like he like spit it out, and she's like, do we need to call poison control? I was like, no, don't call, like, well, are we talking like 1? I mean, even if he dumped a whole thing of it. And she goes, it's poisonous. And I'm like, no, but so I understand why you're worried, but also you really don't need to panic. It's okay. And so she's like, I'll watch him. And I'm like, okay, well, in the excrement, there's such a little amount. But I think she was just more upset that this kid just ate bug poop, like sitting right next to her. I was like, trust me, we're not going to be on like, the 6 o'clock news for killing a kid with a monarch poop pellet, it's okay. But I felt so bad because she just absolutely panicked. Because she's like, I've always heard they're so toxic. And I was like, yes and no, not to the point that it's going to, Okay, so I have several species that I'm going to do a up close for you guys on starting.
And you don't have to be in a hurry.
Right. I know I'm trying to
No.
watch my time. I don't want to keep you guys too long. So, and I just talk fast though. It's not me being in a hurry. I just that is who I am as a person. I talk fast. And sometimes I try to make myself slow down, and then I can't even make myself slow down. So monarchs, Daenerys plexippus, worked really hard to be able to say that. Family is Nymphalidae. That is the largest family of butterflies. I explained to my kids. It's like how you share a last name with your family. That's like a real close family. But then we're all humans, right? But then there's subcategories of humans, and that's not the right way to say it. There are different groups of people who have different facial features if you wanted to group people and things like that. Butterflies work very much like that. So you'll have these little groupings of families that all share characteristics, but they're all part of the larger, greater family of Nymphalidae. 6,000 species, that is actually usually increasing, and that fluctuates from time to time. We're always finding new species. We're always rearranging categories that species go into. And these are the ones that tend to stand on 4 legs. So this is one of my absolute favorite pictures ever. That is a migratory female from the monarch migration 5 years ago, at least. So she came through the school garden, and it was right when we got an influx of about 3 dozen butterflies, and they all just hung out in the orchard, because that orchard, I could smell it from the parking lot. It was like heaven. They all came, and they would nectar, and then they would go down and they would lay eggs on the lawn, and they stayed for 3 days, and then they moved on. And I ended up finding one dead in the garden who looked a lot like her, but it just felt like such a privilege. Like, I see the miles on those wings.
Yeah.
And her genes got carried on in that garden, and it was just really awesome. So I see that, and I just think, because I understand what I do about butterflies and the migration, it's, whenever the migration is headed north, that is several generations. They only live for a few weeks here and there, and they do like a hop, essentially. But the ones that fly from the furthest northernmost parts all the way down to Mexico, those are the ones that we get in the spring. And Texas is one of the first places that gets monarch stopovers.
Wow.
So you're seeing the ones that made the longest part of that journey. And they are the Methuselah generation because they can live for 6 to 9 months instead of 6 to 8 weeks. So that's incredible because that's a lot of miles on that girl. No matter where she came from, she's been through a lot to be able to come back and be part of the migration. So I get a little emotional about it because monarchs made me fall in love with butterflies in general. So, all right, so queen looks a whole lot like a monarch, right? They're essentially cousins, and I say that a lot. They're very closely related, and they both rely on milkweed. Also, brushfoot butterflies, they tend to hold their wings open when resting. That's a characteristic of brushfoot butterflies. These guys are more classically seen here in the fall. They love Greg's mistflower. Anytime I've had that in mind, there's something in it that the males need to be able to mate, and so they will find it and they will come to it. I have videos of my Greg's mistflower from 2 years ago, and I think at one point we counted like 16 species of butterflies, but most of them were queens, and they were chasing all the other butterflies off because they really desperate. It's a good resource for them, and they really want it. But they do look very similar to monarchs. So they like South Texas, but I mean, really, I see them. If my Greg's mistflower is blooming in the fall, they will 100% be here without a doubt.
Isn't that the purpley blue one, the Greg Mist?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And they look like little pom-pom
Yes.
flowers.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I need to get y'all seeds for that, but it is like all up my side yard now. I had one in a pot, and it died, and I was really bummed. I was like, what did I do wrong? Apparently it broke up with me, and it went and lived in the wild about 3 feet further over, and then just like has grown everywhere. So it just was like, I don't like you, and you made this living condition unbearable, but I'm gonna come over here in like the ditch where the gutter drains, and that's where I'm gonna live. So that's the kind of gardener that I am, apparently. But the caterpillars look super different from your monarch caterpillars. So these are our monarchs with the yellow and the black and the white. These guys have these extra sets of filaments. Sometimes you'll get more or less than that, but that's the one I've seen the most classically. And they also, though, so that's a male. Like in monarchs, they've got that spot there, and then that one's a female. But they're pretty similar. Their behavior's pretty similar. They tend to be a little more cannibalistic than monarchs are, which is, I don't know, it's weird to me, but yes, Greg's mistflower, nectar, and then the males just, they land on it and they do that little scratchy thing, and it's like they're collecting minerals to be able to mate. It's really cool. Eastern black swallowtail. I love that picture because that is like freshly emerged. We never found the chrysalis, but we were walking through the school garden, and I leaned in to get a picture, and I'm like, here. And I kept leaning, and it never moved. And my husband was like, why is it not moving? And he leaned in and it took off. I was like, listen, you interrupted my Disney princess vibes, okay? I had a thing going. But I love Eastern black swallowtails. These are, I would say, aside from monarchs, one of the most common ones that I identify for people. They get mistaken for monarchs as caterpillars a lot. The color scheme's pretty similar. But these guys will be on, rue and dill and things like that rather than on milkweed. Okay, so we have a ton of black swallowtail varieties. Like it is just kind of the general category of black swallowtail. And that means you see it go by and go, that's some kind of swallowtail. And it's black and it's a blur, and once you see it landed, I can ID some of them in flight all these years later, but sometimes I'm like, I got nothing, it's gotta land, I don't know. But dill, fennel, rue, parsley, plants in the carrot family. I've had a lot of friends, I'm harvesting my carrots, what are these caterpillars? Those are Eastern black swallowtails. We love these. We raise tons of these. It's actually how I figured out I'm allergic to rue. Well, I don't know if it's an allergy. I don't know if it like touch. I get blisters, like sun blisters. It's really weird. I still use it because I like to live dangerously, but it's not the best. I have to use gloves, but they are awesome. I absolutely love Eastern black swallowtails, and they tend to be like these guys. I couldn't get their osmetrium to come out. Those guys will will show you their OC trim, their bromine. So pipevine swallowtails, that's these guys right here. I took that at our school garden. I have seeds from those exact plants here for y'all today.
Yeah.
So I call it pink coneflower, but I guess some people say it's purple.
Yeah.
I don't know. It looks like that. When you see coneflower, that's what you're getting from the seeds that I'm bringing. Echinacea.
Yeah.
My brain has to like, hang on, I gotta get there. But these are Batis phylonor. They're, you know, in the swallowtail family. This is another of the black swallowtail species. These guys, I can tell from how they fly if it's a pipevine or a, oh my gosh, my brain just short-circuited. The ones that look like caterpie. It's later. The ones with the swoosh. She just showed me. It's the, oh my gosh, I seriously just like.
Is it the spice bush?
Spice bush. Oh my gosh, I was trying to think of a P and I was like, that's not right. So I can tell the difference between a spice bush and a pipevine in flight. These guys have a different erratic flight pattern. Spice bush actually kind of fly low to the ground, which is weird because their host plants are trees. So like I don't know how that works, but they do. But again, black swallowtails, kind of until you see them land and you get to see their details, it's a little hard to find them. But they've got tails. Most in the swallowtail family have the little tails on their wings. There are some exceptions, which I have one in here for you because I got to raise them and I love them. So they host on pipevine. Similar to monarchs, pipevine is semi-toxic. So they are usually left alone by most predators because they are semi-toxic. So plus, they're actually really scary looking. The first time I ever saw one, my brain, so I'm scared of spiders. I'm working on it. I have 3 as pets and we're getting there. It's like exposure therapy. But what color is a black widow? They are black with red. What color is a pipevine swallowtail? Black with like reddish orange. And my brain was like, danger, Will Robinson, do not touch that. And I really had to like make myself, okay, they're safe to hold, they're safe to hold. Even though they're caterpillars, and I love caterpillars, but that aposematic coloring, it did exactly what it was supposed to. It made my brain think that is not safe. It is very safe, but that's exactly what it does for predators. So this is what their little eggs look like. That's what their adorable little feet look like, which is like, I love it. They have little grabby toes. And they pretty much look the same from day one. They look like little gummy caterpillars. But I did do a picture. That is the same number in my hand from, it was over the course of, oh, I have it on there, but I can't, hang on. I can't read it. Oh no, that's just my watermark, never mind. Sorry. So that's hatchlings, that's about halfway, it's about 2 weeks from the first picture to the last picture. That's about how long they're in caterpillar stage, is about 2 weeks. And then that's one that had just newly emerged. I've raised so many of these, they're my favorite, and they're cannibalistic little punks, but I still like them. And they do something cool that not many species does. They are gregarious, which means they eat in a group when they are in their smaller instars. They do that to appear larger. So they look like a big creature, when in reality, they're just like a tiny little delicious treat if things ever got over the weird coloring and, toxicity. But yeah, it's cute. And then as they get bigger, they separate, and I always laugh because I'm like, yeah, because that's the stage where they start eating each other. So they're like, okay, it's been nice, y'all, but we gotta go. So this is a Polydamas swallowtail. Notice there are no tails. This is still somehow in the swallowtail family. These are also called gold-rimmed swallowtails. This is one of my absolute favorites, and it's such a treat to get to see them. They do not range up here very often, but they occasionally do. And fun fact, males and females look exactly the same. It's one of the few species that has absolutely no variation. The only way you can tell, like, that's a male, and I know that because he has a slender abdomen that comes to a point. The females have an abdomen that would look more like a ballet shoe, like it kind of has like a flatter bottom to it. But that's the only way that you can tell is to look at the abdomen. That's the only way you can distinguish. So no tails. They also host on pipevine in the Aristolochia family. Their eggs are orangish yellow, makes it a little easier to tell them from the poly. So you see, there's their eggs in the bottom corner. They're pretty bright yellowish orange. Sometimes I like gaslight myself and I see them on my plant. I'm like, oh, could those be polys? No, they're not. It's almost always pipevines. But one day I'll get them back. But they are actually technically not lumped in with the black swallowtail crew, which is kind of confusing to me because plenty of swallowtails in nature will lose their tails. So, I mean, I I feel like they should be in there, but apparently I got kicked out. Eastern giant swallowtail. Love these so much. This was one of the first giant. I mean, when that thing came out, I thought, oh my gosh, like they're the largest swallowtail species, actually the largest butterfly species in North America. They're, as babies, they look like bird droppings, which is to keep them safe. That was one that we hatched, and that was me collecting all the eggs I could find. These are not loved by people who farm citrus because they call them orange dog caterpillars. They, in large quantities, they can put a dent in some foliage. We're not going to see that out here. If you've got an orange tree, you see a couple, your orange tree is going to survive. My little sister had some citrus that was growing in her house and it died back. And now just the rootstock is growing, and so she has like trifoliate orange. Little magnifier. My husband got this one for free, but they're easy to find online if you if you want to go check out your plants and like that is fun. And you can actually use this to take pictures. So you can take a picture with it magnified in here so that you can see better. Yes.
Alright guys, they have information where you can get a growing guide. They got plant varieties, vegetable planting charts, and companion charts. So we're going to get all of these. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed learning about butterflies and knowing that they do have a purpose to be in your garden and they help your garden. And so also I found out the things I need to plant in my garden to help them. But anyway guys, I just hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please join CC Sex's Garden, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.